Gotta take me off the picture, Angie.
Video is truth. Truth is trust building.
Welcome to the Digital Communications Multicast. This is the show for you if you're exploring new ways of communicating more efficiently online. I'm your host, Anthony Prichard, and I created this broadcast to help facilitate the digital marketing revolution. We're obviously in the middle of massive ongoing change in our economic environment. And to help facilitate that change, We bring in guests to help educate, help you with transformation, and to execute. So we hope that you add this program to your list of the regular content that you consume. Today, my guest is a veteran of the digital communications uh, area. His name's Brian Hansen. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, today is July 1st, Brian. Are you ready for the second half of the year?
I would say so. Let's hope the second half's not nearly as exciting as the first half.
Yeah, I mean, it's a time to start from the beginning, to scrap everything and start over. Tell our viewers your background as a digital marketing consultant, working for many marketing directors at dozens of organizations, medium and large size. What do you do for them?
Sure. I've been playing in the digital marketing field for the past 12 years. In that time, I've been mostly in the agency space, working with everybody from a small startup mom and pop shop to very large international organizations. The basic premise is the same: trying to get their message out in front of a ready to buy consumer at the right time with the right message. So one of the great things about Google is it tends to be a great equalizer in a lot of senses. That hey, they want the small people to succeed. They want the large multinational corporations to succeed. You just have to play by their rules.
There's really two types of businesses, I guess you could say. One would be local, and the other one would be more global. And so let's start with the local. What advice would you give a local business owner who's maybe in the 500,000 a year to $1 million a year, and they want to make the next step up to 5 million a year?
Sure. What's been interesting over the last, probably last 2-3 years, take it back 3-4 years, what Google has done to level the playing field on a local SEO playing field has been amazing. One of the very basic mantras with Google has always been: don't worry about what end user want, or don't worry about what Google wants, excuse me. Worry about what end user wants, and Google's going to reward you. And we've seen in the last 36 months that, I know that's a very broad statement to say, and it's very kumbaya-ish in a sense, but Google has really put a lot of teeth behind that, both in terms of algorithm updates as well as investments. So probably the easiest place to start is think about what's important for your end user, where they're looking, what their pain points are, and what some of the competition that they're looking at besides yourself. It's a pretty easy place to start.
Yeah. Well, I know when I get introduced to a new company that I didn't know existed yet, the first thing I do is go check out their reputation. I want to find out if they're established, if they have got a track record of giving people a good experience in the past. Is that what you find?
Absolutely. And kind of back to the don't worry about what Google wants. If you kind of think about Google in the sense that, Google is never going to buy a bagel from your stores, never going to purchase anything from you guys. But the thing to think about is they have tens of thousands of potential friends, if you will, that are looking for that bagel place. And the only way that Google really knows if you're a quality place or not is really what people are saying about you. And what we've seen within the last 36 months is that local reviews continue to be more and more important. In a lot of cases, you see that the review and excuse the geek speak here, but user-generated content about a local company, you'll see that generates more traffic sometimes than their own website, or even if they're dabbling in paid media. Google realizes that that's a very important traffic driver for folks, and because one, it tends to be more bottom of funnels. By the time people are looking at reviews, they're more apt to be in a ready to buy situation. So, long answer to a very short question: absolutely, local reputation is critical for local business.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've got another question for maybe our viewers who are small businesses that you can maybe help them answer. if this local business, let's call it a plumbing or an HVAC or some other type of home service provider, had not tried to optimize their website or their Google listing for the keyword near me for whatever they do, how many clients do you think they would be losing on a monthly basis, let's say?
Oh gosh, I mean, it depends on the market, but it would be a significant amount of loss. The biggest area to, the quote unquote optimize the near me search is within your Google My Business listing. Google's become much more intrinsic on what exactly is near me. What we saw a few years ago is the actual term near me was important. Well, Google continues to get smarter and smarter and smarter. So they understand that when you and I are doing a search for HVAC, likely the end user is looking for something that's close to you. It's not looking for something that's in, Peoria, Illinois, or something along those lines. They want to say they recognize that proximity is one of the biggest relevant factors in the search. So, not necessarily putting the words near me in there, but making sure that your address, the Geek Speak term is the NAP listing, name, address, phone number, is evident across everything that you do. So that allows Google to really recognize what is near you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I know it works in YouTube really well too, especially in the suggested videos column on the right-hand side. If I happen to be watching a video that happens to be with a geographical area, it'll suggest another video that has to do with the same geography. So moving on to, let's say, an e-com business or a software provider. Let's say they're at 2 to 5 million a year and they want to make the jump to 10 million a year or more. What would be your advice to them?
For both of those areas, especially with software, content is going to be king. If you figure that the sales process with both factors tend to be, e-commerce can be anywhere from a day or two to several months, and anywhere from 100, 150 touch points before end user decides to make a purchase. You got to figure that content's going to be king. So the more you can educate end user, kind of get back to the mantra of worrying about what end user wants and not what Google wants, be able to further educate clients as they move down the sales funnel is going to be absolutely critical as it relates to software-based companies, SaaS companies, things along those lines. The more quality content, the more relevant content that you can put out that is targeted towards what end users searching for, the success that they will see just is quite remarkable if they're following a very strategic plan in that sense.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. We're building relationships in a virtual silo. We're not able to meet in person, and we shouldn't expect that we're going to be able to meet in person to influence our end users. Like you saw a trend called experiential marketing last few years, where companies like Chipotle would rent out a city park and have a huge experience. Well, that's just not something they have an option to do anymore. And so you're right. Their only alternative is to create a better content strategy and to give their end user a better experience with that content. What are some of the great ways that you see companies engaging in a virtual silo, just like this?
Oh gosh, I mean, it does depend upon what vertical you're playing in, but I think the general, the broad stroke is marketers or companies that are very true to their overall brand image has been tremendous. If it's a software-based company that is really in tune with what their end user personas might be by providing content for 5 or 6 of the true personas have been established for that company. If it's creative engagement through Facebook, I think the overall, the very simple answer is being true to yourself as a brand and as an image. That is where the most success and the most interaction lays. Great content and great frequency.
Great. Well, we've covered quite a few things. We've, I know that you've had a lot of experience watching the progression of digital communications. If you had a crystal ball and you were looking into the future, what would you see for companies that are trying to make a better impact, be more efficient with their online communications?
What's funny is that, in the past 12 years, 13 years at this point that I've been in digital. That's one of the questions. It's kind of the old interview question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? That's where I've seen, that's kind of the mentality that in every agency that I've ever dealt with, that we've seen. It's like, how do you, where do you see yourself? Is it going to be, way back in the days when YouTube had finally started to monetize? Well, do we go full on YouTube? As Facebook started to kind of get their legs for advertising, do we start doing that? The very simple answer is know exactly what your audience is thinking, what questions they have, how your product, your service, your company can best fulfill it, and just as important, play where they're going to play. There's so again, I'm not an SEO expert, I'm not an SEM expert, I'm not a video expert. I'm a digital. I don't want to say expert because it does sound arrogant, but I'm completely channel agnostic. So to be successful, you have to make sure that your marketing plan, in terms of execution, what channels you're playing in, continues to be pliable. But again, being true to your message, knowing what end user wants, and providing the best experience for them is absolutely key.
Yeah, and that has stood the test of time. I can definitely agree with you. The approach of using multiple touch points to make an impression on your most profitable persona tends to stand the test of time. If we're going to build trust with somebody online, we want to engage with them through email, through text message, through Facebook, through YouTube, as many ways as we can, in order to build their trust. That I think even in my marketing 101 class, they said 7 to 9 impressions until somebody trusts your brand. What kind of approach in the multi-touch points do you like to recommend for your customers?
The business 101, marketing 101 of the 7 to 10 touch points is always stands true. Years ago, and by years I mean 7, Google came out with a study called ZMOT, the Zero Moment of Truth, and in that was right in the days of when online marketers really started to accept the fact that people don't live in a silo. So people might be affected by social media, paid ads, and organic, and whatever other channels on it. At that point, Google had come up with a number that for buying an automobile, which is the second largest investment that traditionally anybody's going to make in their lifetime, that there was 35 touch points before somebody decided that, okay, I've chosen the model, I know the dealership I'm going to go from, and now I feel comfortable to reach out to. In the years since, we've seen that number jump up to 35, 40 to 50 for somebody buying something as simple as a t-shirt online. So long answer to your short question, I think the key factor is as people are entering your sales funnel or your ethos or whatever term you want to put on, the more engagement that you have, the better. But again, at the same time, you've got to recognize where that persona falls in the buying process. People have just entered their email for information. They're not ready to be sold just yet. They're ready to do the research on why your company, why your product, whatever it might be, is helpful. Yeah. And then you start moving them down the line. So a very strategic plan, a communication plan with every touch point and every step within that sales funnel is going to be critical for a small mom and pop to a company that does $100 million a year across 3 or 4 nations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what you're saying is that the touch points have increased, and even if a potential customer gives you their email, they're still saying that you're going to have to do even more to get me over the fence. Exactly. And for that, a company has to sequence their remarketing in an elegant way that is appealing to that person who indicated they might be interested.
Absolutely. One of the best analogies that I had, and I'm stealing this from a client of mine a couple of years back, is as we're going through the sales automation process that we're putting together, was that, you know what, when somebody gives, the equivalent of somebody gives you the email, they're just ready to see if they want to go out on a date with you. They're not ready to get married just yet. So you need to follow that process. Ask somebody's name, meet, talk to them a little bit, ask them out, and then ask them to marry when the time is appropriate. You ask for marriage right off the bat as a marketer, you're gonna do more damage to your brand than positive.
Yeah, they won't be open any longer to your message.
Exactly.
Yeah, you see that happening the wrong way so many times, and you're right. It's just a bad first impression.
Exactly.
Well, great. I really want to thank you for coming on and talking about digital communications, Brian. Is there anything out there that you think we haven't discussed that needs to be talked about?
I think more now than ever, individual business owners, even the small mom and pop shops wear so many hats. So it's easy to get lost in information, but it's still very critical to make sure that you keep abreast of at least the very high level changes in this realm that we're playing in, because it is changing daily. Now, I'm not advocating be a complete expert. That's why folks like us do get jobs, but you need to make sure that you're aware of the broad strokes of what's going on. And as this market continues to evolve, we've seen insane amounts of forced evolution over the last 4 months. And the companies that have adapted are the ones that are thriving right now. Mm-hmm. So be as much of an expert as you possibly can, and know who to trust.
Yeah. And I guess we'll finish it with what you started with talking about Google. I mean, 90% of all people today solve their daily problems because they trust the Google search engine. And if you're not showing up there where people are looking for you, then you just don't exist. And so if your company has survived this long without putting itself in the digital communication space, that's probably the first place to start. And somebody like Brian can definitely help you with a strategy in the short term and the long term. Thanks again for coming on our program, Brian. And I hope to talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Nowadays, you are your own television broadcasting station, and it costs just a fraction of what it did 5 years ago.